You're listening to the Rogue Medic Podcast, where medicine meets adventure, and in every episode, we discuss topics that will help you prepare for the chaos of the pre-hospital care environment. Join our hosts as we bring you to the heart of the topics, discuss high-stakes scenarios, and bring you the stories of Rogue Medics who provide care in this challenging environment. So buckle up, grab your gear, sit down with that drink, and get ready to learn from those who answer the call in some of the most extreme conditions. Whether you're a pre-hospital medical professional that provides care in the backcountry, an adventure enthusiast that helps people in the backcountry, or a medical professional fascinated with pre-hospital medicine, and then also field leadership, this podcast is for you. Now let's jump right into today's episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Rogue Medic Podcast, where we explore the front lines of emergency medicine. We talk about search and rescue and a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, Jason Tartalone, and I want to welcome you back to the show. Before we get started with today's episode, let's step into the Ready Room for the Ready Room Rundown, where we provide some quick updates, talk about some of our upcoming courses, and then also what's on the radar for the Rogue Medic crew. All right, well, summer is nearly here, and our education team is going to be out and about. So keep your eyes posted for our Summer Adventure Wilderness First Aid course, as well as one of our hybrid Wilderness First Aid courses. We love putting those programs on. They're a lot of fun. And they also allow you a little bit of adventure, and the hybrid course allows some flexibility to the schedule. So our Adventure Wilderness First Aid course is usually we're taking a hike someplace for a couple days, doing the wilderness first aid class while we're on that hike or at the campground, and just kind of doing it in a field environment where we're going to be doing these kind of things and talking about how we prep for those types of events. And then our hybrid wilderness first aid class is the same content, just half of it's online, half of it's in person, and we have a lot of fun with those programs. So keep your eyes peeled for those courses coming up soon. Our Wilderness Paramedic Upgrade will be having a fall offering. We'll be posting that information soon. It's been pretty well received course. We've been having a lot of fun with it. And then as far as the WPC goes, we'll actually be able to offer FOM credits and FAME credits here very, very soon. We've been working on those for some time now, and working on all the details to be able to get those kind of things, to be able to bring some more bang for your buck for those programs. And the WPC course has been running great as of late. We've been having some great reviews, some great feedback. So check it out when you see it. We're running a course here very shortly with 7 fantastic trainees, and we're excited to get this material out there and to train with you guys and to put you into some of these environments and work through these multi-hour and multi-situational kind of scenarios. So it's a lot of fun with those programs. One of the other big things that's on the radar for our WPC type programs is that we'll be offering an online review course here very soon, completely virtual at your own pace. And that program will be up and probably live by August. Is kind of the goal, is to have that out and available to allow folks enough time to renew, get into the course, and so forth. Yeah, we're really excited to roll that content out. We'll be running our field team leader course coming up again. The SRTC field team leader course is about to make its 4th debut. We've been running this as a hybrid program for a while now, and we've done some revamp to it a little bit to kind of look at how we've been presenting the material, and then also how we can better serve you. So we'll be running again as a hybrid program this fall, and those dates will be coming out here soon. So if you're looking to take your ground search and rescue training to the next level, keep an eye out for that hybrid field team leader course that's coming. Then for the experienced person that don't necessarily want to take the jump into management or into team leadership, our advanced search and rescue course is going to be coming again this winter as well, where we're going to expand on knowledge for experienced SAR personnel, look at challenging some of your skills, put you through some challenging scenarios, and it's just a lot of fun for a weekend. It's mostly an overnight course. So it's a 12, 14-hour program that we run, starting afternoon, running through the night, and then finishing up early the next day. So a lot of fun with that course, but it is kind of challenging just from the standpoint of, working overnight and working in the dark. And then lastly, our SAR Initial Actions course, our virtual SAR Initial Actions course, our next one's going to be held in August. So this is a great course for team members, for either new team members or experienced team members to start looking at management, looking at the why we do things, looking at getting your law enforcement partners and fire department partners into this program, because it's a great workshop on the beginning part of search. And if you don't know anything about our search and rescue initial actions course, it is a NASAR SAR-IA program done over 12 hours virtually, with some assignments in between that build out what's supposed to happen and how we can more effectively manage searches during that first operational period, the first 5 or 6 hours of this incident. So the online format has been really popular, and we're super excited to continue that once a quarter. So next quarter will probably be in August, beginning of September. We're shooting for an August start date. And yeah, we're super excited to keep that program rolling. And it's always fun to kind of see everybody work through these problems. So that's your Ready Room rundown. Now let's get into today's episode. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about position task books, and specifically the National Association for Search and Rescue, or NASAR's position task books. But we'll talk about it from a general standpoint and then dig into the NASAR nuances. So, we kind of been getting a lot of questions about position task books, how they work, how the system works, and so the misnomer of prerequisite versus additional education and so forth. And I thought this would be a good way to kind of share information to the masses, but also um, thought this would be a double whammy where we could actually send this to a lot of our NASAR participant students and tell them kind of about the system, give them the information about the new system. And it's kind of neat to see this kind of evolve. And it from an instructor standpoint, it gives me a lot of flexibility. From a student standpoint, gives you a lot of flexibility and extra time to be able to complete these things. So that's kind of the beauty of a position task book system. So a position task book, or PTB, is a structured evaluation document used to verify that an individual has successfully demonstrated knowledge, skills, and some of the required abilities to perform for a specific position, right? So PTBs are commonly used in emergency services for incident management positions, wildland fire, search and rescue, emergency management, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different organizations and layers and places that use position task book systems to document this data and then to show what the standard is. Like, what are you supposed to know and demonstrate? And that's what the position task book system is designed for. So, what is a position task book, right? Think of a PTB as a competency based checklist for a position. It's rather simply, more simply than attending a class and receiving a certificate. You have to be able to demonstrate the ability to perform different duties, different tasks, different skills, and either apply them or collect experience via exercises and simulations, or have these things happen at actual incidents. So um, there's a lot of different things that a PTB can contain. So PTB can contain position specific performance requirements. It can show specific tasks that need to be completed, or like number of repetitions for different skills to before we can sign a competency. It collects evaluator signatures verifying that the individual successfully performed said skill or completed the education. It's also a way that you can collect all of these other certificates for this additional education. So, and then puts it into one thing so that when you submit for recognition and credentialing or certification, you have all the supporting documentation to say, yeah, these are all the things that I needed to learn. I showed proficiency in these things. And then I can get a final recommendation for qualification by submitting all of this different data. And a lot of times, folks will complete a class, maybe complete an evaluation, take a written test, and that certifies somebody to do something. Whereas a position task book kind of puts more detail to what that actually is. It provides more of a feedback loop for that. And it provides the checklist of all the things you have to show. It provides some area to collect training experience. So in certain position task books for trainees and things like that, once you complete certain things, you open a task book, you're a trainee for a situation. You then, at actual incidents, at trainings, at other things like that, have to collect experience and demonstrate proficiency after learning these skills. And the idea is that you're not just checking a box because you did it once, you're checking a box when you've done it so many times that you don't need to be babysat. You just know the job at that point. That's what the task books are for. So, for example, a person working towards qualification as a search and rescue team leader, planning section chief, safety officer, incident commander at a different level for complexity of incident would complete a position task book specific to that position where they collect different educational certificates and then also show proficiency in some of the skills that they need to perform to be able to work in that job description, either as a volunteer or actual like paid personnel. So why do we use them? Why should we use them? Well, it ensures competency and not just attendance. Attending a course doesn't automatically mean somebody can perform the job. I've known lots and lots of people that attend courses and collect certificates and collect training. But when it comes game time to actually apply those things, to actually work in that environment, to utilize them, they actually don't know how to do it. Or they didn't get the repetition in class because it was an attendance certificates and they didn't actually do it in class. So a position task book takes away that ability to kind of skate and hide in the background of a course where you have to actually perform the skills and you have to demonstrate individually that you can do certain things within a specific environment. And a PTB requires the individual to actually demonstrate them and demonstrate decision making abilities that are needed for these positions. So it's really important. It helps standardize the qualification. PTBs that help ensure that personnel are evaluated against the same standards, regardless of where they train or what organization they receive training from. It provides evidence that the qualification requirements were met and they were met to the standard. It supports risk management. So emergency incidents have significant consequences and have specific risks to different job titles and environments. PTBs help organize and verify that personnel have been properly trained and evaluated before being assigned to positions with greater responsibilities. And then lastly, it facilitates professional development. A PTB provides a roadmap for career progression that personnel can clearly see what skills, training, and other experiences that they should have or collect to advance into this next position. So, how do these things get completed? Well, general PTBs follow a progression similar to what we're about to outline. So, we need to complete prerequisite training. And there are some times where things are prerequisite. So, I need to complete a task book for a field team member or have a field team member certification before I can be a field team leader. I need to have that experience. Maybe I need to collect um, some, like I need to attend a course, right, as a prerequisite to opening the certification position task book. Once those things are completed, then I can receive and initiate a PTB from the agency having jurisdiction. And I know AHJ has multiple definitions out there. AHJ is used in the context here of what is a sponsoring organization? Like, who are you going to be doing this for initially that's going to credential you and say, yeah, you've met the standard, you've met the required training stuff. So the agency having jurisdiction is what flag are you flying? Are you doing it for a state management team? Are you doing it for your local search team, for the sheriff's department, whatever? Right? What agency is going to credential you and say, yeah, you've met the standard? That's the agency having jurisdiction. And in certain cases, it may be the state, it may be a state council or representative that of that discipline that is saying, yeah, you submit your PTB here, and then we issue that credential. So NASAR is one of those places where you collect stuff, complete a PTB, submit that to NASAR for consideration and review, and then they issue a certification based on what they're willing to evaluate, right? So things like the fire service, the Wilderness Fire Service, Wildland Fire Service, uses position task books, and you have to do the things, complete the class, and then also spend so much time on incidents, or so many actual incidents, depending on the position task book and what you're trying to work for. It might be a number of incidents that you have to participate in that position, and then or number of training incidents and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different ways to collect that. And in those cases, you have to work under qualified mentors or coaches. So folks that are not only certified, but potentially have a certain amount of time to evaluate you as an individual working for this thing. And different position task books have different rules and guidelines. And all of those are derived and come from standards that are set by an organization. You have to demonstrate the required tasks and exercises at real incidents or training incidents, and then have each task signed off by that same qualified evaluator. Then lastly, we of the last part of this process is submit the completed position task book for review to receive qualification and certification. So for an example, right? So in search and rescue, since we're talking about NASAR and we're talking about search and rescue in general. So as an example, if someone is pursuing qualification as a SAR team leader, their PTB may require them to demonstrate the ability to conduct operational briefings, manage search and rescue resources in the field, develop and apply search tactics for a given search scenario, maintain responder safety, coordinate communications, complete necessary documentation, and then supervise folks during actual simulated missions. And that'll be broken down into singular or multiple tasks for each of those areas and then some, right? These are just general examples of what could be evaluated based on the standard. And after they successfully demonstrate that, collect the necessary additional education certificates, and have completed all their evaluations and gotten a final sign off from an evaluator saying, yeah, they're qualified at this point for review. After they successfully done that, then they submit the qualification. So the bottom line is a position task book is not simply a training record. It's a performance-based qualification system. Its purpose is to ensure personnel can actually perform the duties of a position safely, effectively, and consistently. That's the big thing. Consistently, not just once, but consistently before formally being qualified to fill that role. I think that's one of the big pieces that's missing from a lot of different initial training programs and processes and so forth, is that we have such an instant feedback and instant gratification type society that we haven't built the patience into the system to really emphasize consistency and proficiency. We are very much a, hey, I did that, I can do it again kind of situation, but we fail to make people demonstrate things multiple times, or people fail to understand that they need to demonstrate things more than once to become qualified and certified. Like we should be stopping and getting rid of this perpetuation of the one and done scenario. We don't want one and done providers. We want, or searchers. We want proficient and qualified and competent. And that means we need to consistently be able to perform certain skills. On the other side of this, right, in an emergency services where lives, responder safety, and mission success are always at stake, position task books provide a defensible and standardized method for developing and validating competence, right? That defensible piece is big, right? If something does go sideways, again, one of the first things that they ask for is, do you have a qualification to do this? And if I don't have the paper that documents that, then I'm not qualified, right? And that's the reality of the world we live in, right? You don't just walk into the firehouse and be like, I'm a firefighter, and throw on an SCBA with no training and bunker gear with no training and go into a house fire. That's not how it works, right? Same with law enforcement, right? You don't just, I'm a cop today, and walk into the police station, put on a uniform and a gun, and do that without required training and certification and qualification. Like, it's the same thing. There's paper that says that I'm trained to do this, I'm qualified to do this, and I've been tested to a standard. And the PTB is part of a way to accomplish that. So now that we've talked about position task books in general, let's talk about the NASAR system specifically. So NASAR has transitioned to a position task book system and is working towards having PTBs for most of its programs and certifications. And they're slowly rolling these out as they develop them because they want to get them right. They want to have some of that beta testing that's occurring. They want to make sure that everything they're asking folks to do is realistic. And then some of this is very general to for a reason, right? NASAR makes some of their stuff extremely general because they're not just certifying folks in a certain region. They're certifying folks across the country and in many places in several different countries. And there are some differences, right? So they're trying to acknowledge that with their PTB system, which makes it a little bit more complicated than, hey, this is the standard and here it is. And then there's also that understanding that sometimes the actual standard itself is updated, right? The industry standard portion is updated before the policy procedure or standard changes itself from the proper standpoint. So there's that emphasis there. So they're trying to make it gray enough that it's can be used in any region, but rigid enough that everybody's meeting a standard and is trained to the same standard, right? That's the big thing. So they currently have position task books for Introduction to Search and Rescue course, the FUNSAR course, SARTEC 3, SARTEC 2, their mounted SARTEC, and SAR AA, and they just recently released one for a SAR manager qualification. And if you look at all of those, there's a lot of stuff in each of them as far as like tasks to be completed. And then they're broken into two parts. They're broken into the NASAR certification portion. And then based on the standard that was used and or standards that were used to develop that position task book, an agency having jurisdiction set of tasks as well, right? NASAR certifies you to the things that they can evaluate, the things that are not agency specific. And then they provide a separate section that is agency specific things like, hey, discuss and show competency in X, Y, and Z task that your team does specifically. How does your team do this? What's your communications plan? What are some of the other things that are specific to your region or area of operations, right? Those are things that NASAR can't evaluate because we can't say how you're going to do it where you're from. That's certain things are internal. So they provide that section that you can optionally use at the home team portion. But the reality of it is the class and the test that they make you perform, the written test and the practical test, are just a piece of the overall standard, right? So the agency having jurisdiction section is the other portion of that. And if your team is like my team, we have additional things that we require for field team members and field team leaders, in addition to what the published standard is, because our area and the way our team functions and the services that our team provides isn't just search. We do other things. So we require other certifications to be qualified at a certain level for progression within the team. And we kind of bundle it all together. So They're soon to have a field team leader one. They're not sure when that's going to roll out, how they're going to roll that out. So that's one thing that is coming from the NASAR. There'll be a SAR Tech field team leader at some point. But again, there's a bunch of different organizations and courses and ways that we certify field team leaders. So there's going to be competition at some point, right? So our program is direct competition to NASAR, because we built a course, we built a standard, we built a certification process. We offer a certificate that says, yeah, here it is. Here's a PTB for you to complete. And then here's the other thing too, is like your agency that you operate with sets the standard of what they're willing to accept. So you may complete the training and get an ASAR certificate that says you're a field team leader, or get an SRTC, a field team leader certificate that says you completed the course and we evaluated you. But your team, and the way we built our position task book, is that you actually like function as a trainee on a search, for a hasty search, for an area search, and a number of those before your agency can say, yeah, you completed your position task book and are now certified as far as the agency is considered. So I've completed the training. So one of the big myths is that NASAR has prerequisites, right? So NASAR no longer says that there are prerequisites for a lot of things for certification. They have educational requirements, right? So in one of the sections of the PTB, it'll say additional education requirements. And then there's the testing booklet, the things that have to be performed. So, for example, SARTEC 3 and SARTEC 2 require you to have IS or ICS 100 and 700, because that's what the standard says you have to have. They also require a wilderness first aid certification or higher. So wilderness first responder, EMT, nurse, doctor, something along those lines. So you have some sort of medical training beyond first aid, right? And then the environment that you're working in, they've dictated that it should be wilderness first aid for a wilderness SAR responder, because there is more emphasis on improvisation and also how to operate within that field, as compared to a traditional first aid class that assumes you have a first aid box that you're pulling out of a cabinet or something, right? So there are those kind of things. And then a couple additional courses like crime scene awareness, hazmat awareness, like those kind of things are free online programs, or you can take the NASAR course and so on and so forth. And then GPS endorsement kind of parts and pieces, again, tying in the more practical skilling and a different standard. So there's a couple other things, and like I said, they've separated those things, and these offer a lot more flexibility to you as the user as well. So you have, quote unquote, 2 years to complete a course. So some teams will spread out course information over like a training period of months, and then certify folks. And so from the end of the course to the end to when you activate your testing PTB, you have 2 years to complete that PTB. And it's pretty consistent. So even the Forest Service items and things like that, like you have 2 years to complete training. Now, most of the time it doesn't take that long, but it's allowing flexibility for you as the individual to collect things as you go, as well as different teams to offer this in a different mean and way of doing it. One of the teams that I've spoken with over the years actually does a 12-month training process. So it doesn't matter where you start, 12 months from that month of starting, you will be completed and certified. And each month is a specific topic, and it's the same topic every year, every month of every year. So if I joined in March and I started in April, until I get all the way back to April, I wouldn't have collected each piece of that training and certification. So it allows that flexibility to complete what you need to complete and collect those extra certifications like wilderness first aid and all the IS courses and stuff like that as you're moving along. And then you turn everything in, or get somebody to sign off that, yep, I've seen that certificate, it's valid, it's current. There you go. And then you turn in your PTB to get your certification. So, in conclusion, in the end here, so a position task book is more than a checklist. of completed tasks. It's a documented pathway to professional competence. By combining formal training, mentorship, practical exercises, and performance-based evaluations, the PTBs that we utilize help ensure personnel are prepared to perform in their assigned roles effectively, safely, and consistency. NASAR has adopted this same stance and follow the same principles, providing a standardized framework for developing and evaluating and qualifying search and rescue personnel from across a variety of different operational positions and operational locations. Through the new NASAR PTB process, individuals demonstrate not only that they know information, but that they can actually do things in the field, which is super important. And it also helps build more capable responders, stronger search and rescue teams, and allows us to provide more effective and stronger search and rescue operations when we get that call. So that wraps up another episode of the Rogue Medic podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay prepared, and as always, be the standard. This is the Rogue Medic podcast signing out. See ya. Thanks for taking a listen to the Rogue Medic podcast. We're really excited about all the things that we're able to provide for you, and hopefully you find it entertaining. If you have any comments or questions about the show, reach out to us at sergeant_rescuetng@outlook.com or reach out to us via the contact us on our webpage at www.sergeantrescue.com. If you want to check out more of the podcast episodes, you can find us on any of your favorite platforms, and then also head to the website and check out our podcast page at sergeantrescue.com/podcast. Stay safe out there. See you on the next episode.